So you're watching a SkillCapped video, right? And this video is made by TV. He's an Immortal 3 top 1500 player and an IGL for his semi-pro team, Clickin' Chickens. He's constantly analyzing pro games and thinking of how he can improve his games and doing VOD reviews and then just playing the game for hours every single day. You're watching this video from Teets and then you scroll down into the comments and you spot a comment from OmenMain23 and he says, "I'm silver and these tips don't work." All right. Just for the sake of this example, if your life depends on it, in your next silver lobby, who would you trust to help you win the game? OmenMain23 or top 1500 player Teets TV? Okay, I'm willing to bet that most of you probably picked Teets, and I just wanted to showcase how easy it actually is to completely discount everything these silver players are feeling. These are real comments that we get from real people who genuinely don't feel like we're providing them with good advice. So what's up with that? If you take a look at this player distribution chart for February for Valorant, you'll see that Immortal players make up a colossal 1% of the player base. Actually, it kind of looks like less than 1%. So does it make sense for the top 1% of players to be giving advice to the other 99% of players in the community? Some people may say no, and to this I would say, then who should be allowed to give advice? You see, the actual issue doesn't have to do with the tips themselves. What it has to do with is the fact that, believe it or not, Valorant is a pretty difficult game, and thus it's not really possible for us to simplify the game into 5 easy, step-by-step tips that will result in you hitting Immortal. And while over on the website we have tons of Smurf commentaries and VOD reviews that are way more specific than any of the tips that we provide on YouTube, it's very clear to me why these commenters are struggling in Valorant. It's because we can give you the best advice in the world, but if you don't know how to apply it effectively, you're going to be struggling a bit. Let's talk about a pretty basic concept that most players have probably heard of: trading teammates. I think most players would probably agree that trading your teammates is very frequently a good thing to do. But that's kind of the thing, because if it's frequently a good thing to do, that implies that it's not always a good thing to do. And I can only show you so many examples of when it is a good idea to regroup with your teammates so that you can trade them. It's up to you to actually apply that information, and for most players, they won't know exactly how it should be applied. So they'll continue playing the game, probably playing the game slightly better than they did before, but still not quite getting the point. Take a look at this round from one of our VOD reviews that Teets did on the website, and I want you to keep in mind what we just talked about how trading teammates is normally good advice.
So you know Jet's mid. Start rotating off because you got bomb and halls here. Okay. We don't know where Sky is, though. Looks like your KO is... Now, this is redundant. You should just go into halls with your teammate and watch that bomb. Yeah, there's no need for you to peek main here. You got the bomb up here on the ledge, it looks like. Maybe. Yeah. Oh, yeah, this should be easy. Your chamber should come in here with you. I don't know what he's doing. You Molly. I like it. 30 seconds. Only way they can come up is if they jump up, so you just got to get ready to shoot them.
Watch if they cut through,
See Molly. We haven't seen Sky yet, so this is sketch. She could have wrapped around. This is why I want a chamber to like come with you and just hold this way. Sky's definitely behind you right now. 100% Sky's behind you. Sky's got to be behind you. Yep. Yeah, you just got to listen to your teammates there.
So in our videos, we tell you to trade your teammates and how trading your teammates is good. And this Viper groups up with this teammate and then suddenly lost to 3v2 when they had the spike down. This might be an example of one of those moments when this player is like, I did everything right, what happened? But in reality, he just had the right idea. As Teets said, his chamber should have rotated over to help him, but you just can't expect your teammates to be helpful all of the time. He should in the future try to position in a way where he's prepared for that potential flank. As Teets said, he didn't know where the enemy Sky was, so this is absolutely something that he could have accounted for. This is one of the major limiting factors with video content. It's not very personalized. In any other situation, what our Viper did would have been textbook. Is playing with your teammates bad advice? Of course not. Did he need to adjust a bit to compensate for his lack of map control? Absolutely. Have you ever had a problem with some sort of piece of hardware and you tried to troubleshoot it by Googling what the issue you're dealing with is? So you Google, my PC is running really slowly, and you sift through 400 comments of people telling you to turn your computer off and then back on. That's what it feels like when you're watching a video of how to get out of bronze and they tell you to get better crosshair placement. You tried that, it's not working. And then you watch little Timmy on your team and his crosshair placement is atrocious. It's literally so bad, like Timmy might as well be a stingray, you know, because like their face is on their underside. So clearly, if you're the same rank as a stingray and you have good crosshair placement can't possibly be your issue. And I'll actually try to meet you halfway on this issue. I can tell you straight up, if you're in silver, your crosshair placement is not going to be exceptional or even good. I'm a top 1% player, and there are still some massive improvements that I can make to my crosshair placement, as well as pretty much every player I've seen in Immortal. That being said, maybe your crosshair placement actually is a lot better than Timmy's. So what gives? Is crosshair placement actually a joke? Like, does it even matter at all? I mean, hey man, if you want to hedge your bets and say that it doesn't matter, be my guest, but I would propose a new perspective to you. And that perspective is that you may be thinking way too short term. Over on the website, we have a certain type of content that we call Smurf commentaries. These are full games that are meant to be educational, where they're recorded by our coaches and they'll load onto a Smurf account, mute comms, and then they will try to walk players through their thought process when they're playing these games, and they will show you how to carry in lower ranks just like they are, regardless of your team. I'm gonna let you in on a little secret though. It's not quite regardless of their team. If I had to take a guess, I'd say our coaches probably lose around 20 to 25% of their games depending on what rank they're playing in. And that's not because our coaches are bad, they're literally top 1% players. It's because regardless of how well you play, not every single game is winnable. Let's say, for example, you play a sample size of 10 games. In this sample, 2 of those games, the enemy team has a lever. Those are essentially free wins. Pretty much regardless of how you play, you're probably going to come out on top in those 2 games. 3 of those games, the enemy team has a player popping off. They dropped 30 kills and you didn't stand a chance. That player was just simply better. I'm not here to tell you to suddenly go Super Saiyan and beat this player. You're having a rough game and they might even be smurfing. That sucks, and those games are quite literally just unwinnable. But between those 3 losses and those 2 wins, there's still 5 games. These games are toss-ups, and they're matches that you personally get to influence. Now, let's go deeper. During these matches, we have rounds. And in each individual round, you're capable of having an impact. This is when these tips come into play. All of these hours that you spend trying to learn the best ways to play Valorant, all of that time that you're learning about crosshair placement, counter strafing, and practicing your aim training, and this and that, and then suddenly in this one round, in that one game, you get an extra kill because of it. You get an extra kill because of one specific piece of information that you learned. Maybe you corrected your crosshair placement off of some advice that you had previously heard, or maybe the enemy did something dumb and you punished them for it. Now, you might not make this connection directly because it's behind a wall of just pain from those 3 games that you lost that you just didn't have a chance in. But what you learned ended up making a difference in that round, and that difference won you an extra round in a game that you wouldn't have normally won. And with how many games I've had end in overtime, man, I would kill to have that just one extra round sometimes. That one round that you didn't choke because you knew more than the enemy did. That's what you're working for. You're not trying to win those games that are unwinnable. You're just trying to fight for that one extra round, and then once you get that extra round, you try to get another. That's the truth of how you climb in Valorant. It's not just flipping a switch and suddenly you're immortal, it's playing the game fundamentally well and knowing that over time the odds will tip in your favor. So I've taken a lot of interest in the concept of counting cards recently, and since our audience is fairly young, I'm going to quickly explain the rules of blackjack. It's gambling, and gambling is generally bad because the casinos have run the odds and they know that on average on blackjack they'll win something like 51% of the time. But for people who are really good at blackjack, they are able to actually beat the spread by knowing when they are more likely to win and betting more during those time periods. A little different than Valorant, but the idea is that in normal blackjack, if you don't know how to count the cards, you will eventually lose money if you play long enough. Statistically, your odds are around 49%, so over time, you will lose more hands than you will win. However, when counting cards, these players are actually able to beat the spread and win more money than they lose. They don't win every single hand, just as you're not going to win every single round, but when they play perfectly in the long term, statistically, they know that they will come out ahead eventually. And here's the tea. If you don't play the game perfectly, then it's just straight up gambling. Card counters are playing for the long term. They're professionals, and they know that if they analyze their play and they're playing a good game, they've just got to keep going and things will tip in their favor. And they also know that if they're not playing perfectly, the results of the game are not really in their control. Like I said, it's gambling. This, once again, isn't a one-to-one comparison to Valorant. Blackjack isn't a team game, and they don't actually make money by winning more hands. They generally make money by betting more on the hands that they think that they will win. That being said, there is still a lot to be said about the mentality of the way that the game is played. They don't have any control over the hand that they are dealt, so the only way for them to win is to adapt their approach and play, like we said, as perfectly as they can possibly play. And if they analyze their play and they're not playing perfectly, they figure out what they're doing wrong and how they can fix it. This sort of approach takes a lot of discipline and understanding that it takes time to improve. You're not going to win 100% of your games, but if you're winning 55% of them, generally you're going to climb. All of this being said, I probably just intimidated some of you by saying that you need to play perfectly. Let me relax you a little bit by saying there is no such thing as playing perfectly in Valorant. Let me show you some examples. Take a look at this Smurf commentary from Jaden, one of our Radiant coaches. The score is currently 5-7, and this has by no means been a perfect game from Jaden. That being said, Jaden has a really good attacking half in this game, and I want to showcase how he does this despite the fact that his teammates are sometimes working against him. Keep in mind, in this game, Jaden actually has comms muted. You'll hear him communicating with his teammates, but it's definitely a one-way road.
Nice. Try to get bombed down. Watch out flank. Watch out our halls flank.
Cage triggered.
There you go. Can you switch up your Viper wall next time for A? Because the wall you throw, it's a little... it's not bad, it's just it causes us to have less space when we're taking sight. So you could throw it kind of in this corner. So I could ping it like that, and then kind of like that, right? So it kind of gives us more space in like cubby here, and then kind of front of sight too, that we could play around with. So you could come from here, like in this corner where I'm standing, and then you aim it around this ping. Yeah, that's better. Watch out for this. Wait for the Viper wall, honestly. Wait. Can you drop your Viper wall? Drop your Viper wall. Wait for the Viper wall to drop, and then we pop this Viper wall right after, okay? So when this is dropped, pop up yours. Okay, pop yours now. Now start trying to... Oh, you guys got mollied.
Welcome to my world.
We can leave. We can leave. We can leave this Viper ult. She wasted Viper ult here. Try to get out. Oh, nice, really good kill. But still, let's leave. No, let's go. Let's go B. If you have heal, you can try to heal me. Nah, it's okay. Watch out one mid, but it's fine.
Cage triggered.
One is tunnels.
Cage triggered.
Just get on site. I'm one. Nice. Get bomb down. Just stay alive. I'm one shot. Nice. Good job. Good job, guys.
Jaden does a pretty hefty job of IGLing throughout this entire game, and it wins them countless rounds on offense. This is something that you can do in all of your games. Most people operate on a "I'll talk if somebody else is talking" mentality, but this is incredibly flawed due to the reasonings that we talked about at the beginning of this video. You're leaving your fate in the hands of your teammates. If you really want to climb, you need to be communicating in every single game, and this is just part of the perfect play that we talked about. You should at least try to be communicating like this every single game, and I don't think that's unreasonable to ask of players. Let me show you what is unreasonable to ask of you.
Good job, guys. Keep it up. But just keep in mind with like the stuff
Yes, this should do.
about your Viper wall and stuff like that. If they Phoenix ult, we could back out. If we see more than like 3 players or 3 players, then we could back out too. Just take your time taking A. Don't fully commit. Sage, can you hover towards maybe mid area? Just like stand back here, just watching a little bit. Yep, you can run out of A. Let's hover towards B. Guru, can you alt T out for us? Yeah, try to clear out corners.
Cage triggered. They found my wire. Cage triggered. Poison's gone. Where is everyone hiding?
There we go.
You're dead, and I didn't.
That was an
feel
intense
anything,
round
not
there.
Even a thrill.
Nice, good job, guys. Yeah, so keep in mind, just like if you see Phoenix All or if you hear it, just run straight away from it, avoid it. They do have Sage ult here, so be careful. We have Sage ult too.
Wow, this is a nice spot.
So take your time trying to take A, okay? So like apply pressure. You don't have to fully push out. Try to maybe get a pick.
So obviously Jaden is a very, very skilled player. I think that when we talk about playing perfectly, this is probably what comes to most players' minds. Some cracked player just straight up 1v5ing the enemy team every single round. This is not what I'm asking of you. This is an example of a ridiculous clutch that just is absolutely unreasonable to ask for any player, even Jaden. And if it feels like you need to do this frequently in your matches, then you might be in one of those unwinnable games that we mentioned earlier. That being said, Jaden didn't have to do this in every round. And in fact, he kind of threw a few rounds on defense himself. If you were in Jaden's shoes, what I would suggest is rather than focusing in on the round where you literally had to 1v5, try to take a look at these other 3 rounds and think about how could I have maybe survived in the future. I'm not asking you to 1v5 clutch every single round. I'm just asking you to not die to deagles on your buy round. I'm not asking you to land every single absurd flick shot that you can. I'm just asking you to position your crosshair a little bit better in the future so that you don't need to make an absurd flick shot. Overall though, at the end of the day, I just wanted to make this video to say that your feelings are valid. Sometimes it's really hard to see improvement in the game, especially when you're constantly comparing yourself to everyone around you. It's probably a stretch for any player below Radiant to say that they have perfect or near perfect anything in the game. I think that's one of the big tilters in the comments, is saying my crosshair placement is way better than these guys, because just from experience reviewing countless VODs, it's not. But even if it was, it's just really important to remember that solid fundamentals are just intended to help you win more games over time, not to help you win every single game that you play. You might just be in a rough patch. Sometimes people have bad strings of games. Blackjack players will literally go thousands of dollars into debt knowing that they'll come out on top in the end. But you're just losing a little bit of RR. So if you feel like you're playing exceptionally well and you notice your win rate is pretty high right now, that's awesome. You should feel very proud of that. But if you feel like you're playing perfectly and you're still hard stuck in one rank for a while, it might be time to go back into the booth and review some of your games and see if you're really making all of the best decisions. It is really easy to get out of a game and remember that 1v5 that you had and then forget about all of the mistakes that you made. When in reality, at the end of the day, the reason you lost the game is because you threw 2 easily winnable rounds. And at the end of the day, that's what improvement is all about. Keep doing the good things. Stop doing the bad things. Oh, by the way, if you wanted to check out the full Smurf commentary from Jaden, where he pretty much hardcore IGLs his team to victory, that is all available on the website, as well as all of his other Smurf commentaries. They're normally around 25 to 40 minutes, and it's just pure uncut footage of him walking you through every move that he has in the game and why he does what he does. And hey, maybe if that's not what you're looking for, we also offer VOD reviews where top tier players will look through your games submitted by you guys and tell you how to improve. If you wanted to have your game reviewed, feel free to submit it on the Discord. Links for all of that in the description below. And then, as always, my name is King, and we here at SkillCapped want to thank you all for watching. We'll catch you in the next one.